What is up, friends? Welcome to the Chief Chat. It is Friday, December 18th, and the final Chief Chat, I believe, of 2020. There might be one more. I'll check the calendar. But let's see who's here and get rocking. So yesterday, we had the live webinar, Dream Gig 2021, and it was all about the freelancing trends we've seen going into 2021, and pretty radical shifts in how companies are working with copywriters. And on the webinar yesterday, I didn't get a chance to show the listings inside of Copy Chief that directly relate to these shifts in how companies are working with freelancers and how companies are pivoting, right, due to everything that happened in 2020. So I want to do two things with you today, if it's cool with you. I want to show you, go a little bit deeper into two kinds of trends that I've seen, that we've all seen in business, in how that helps us as freelancers, and what exactly it looks like for those companies hiring freelancers, right? What does it tangibly look like? What kind of requests were they making? So let's do that. I'm going to dive into this article from Forbes. It's really interesting to me, how this directly affects. By the way, the name of this article, and I took it off of, this is the print version because Forbes has got a million things that blink and move your screen around. But this is from June, so this is midway through the year. And they were talking about the big shifts that at this point we were a few months into the pandemic, and we kind of had an idea for what business was going to look like. So these experts got together and talked about how they imagined businesses working, and growing and pivoting and adjusting. And so a lot of this has really come true, and we've seen it directly in the way companies are hiring freelancers now. So the blue ones are the ones that show how businesses have changed and adjusted, okay? And the yellow ones show how they're working with freelancers as a result. And again, this is just from one article in Forbes from June. You could search in Google things like COVID's effect on small business, on business pivots, and find all kinds of great articles on exactly, and you'll see these trends over and over. So blue, again, how they're shifting, how they're pivoting. Big companies with recognizable brand names that have strong customer loyalty will come out even stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what's great about that is that those are the exact kind of companies who embrace direct response marketing and who hire freelancers, because what that means is the way to increase customer loyalty is to increase engagement. And you do that through copy and communication, which is what we specialize in. So that kind of works out nice. Rising online retailers. Of course, we know that everything's, moving online, will continue to move online. I talked yesterday about who are the big winners in the pandemic. Obviously, Zoom went from 5.5 million in income last year to 163 million in revenue this year, something astronomical. Amazon now accounts for 14 or 17% of all retail consumption in the US. So every single, 17 out of 100 purchases are going through Amazon now. That may not sound like a lot, but it is staggering. That is a almost frightening amount. So rise of online retailers, we're only going to see more of that. Again, if people are going to order through their phone or their computers, that means there's copy around that. Here's a yellow one. So repurposing office space. Many businesses are proving that some of their team can work remotely with high productivity. And I'm going to skip from 4 to 6 here, because that means that, of course, they'll do more outsourcing. The fastest way to close the gap while they start to build their teams again, is to outsource services rather than hire new employees. So we have these businesses who had to shrink and or had to work learn to work virtually with their employees. And as they start to grow and figure out, okay, how many people are actually going to come back into the office, can we shrink our office space, save a bunch of money that way, and have more of virtual teams, they're going to be hiring people who are used to working virtually and are experts in certain things. They're going to outsource rather than look to hire W-2 employees, which is great for us both in the interim and in the long term. Live streaming demonstrations. I love this. Think about this, demonstrations. What's one of the most important and powerful elements of sales is the demonstration, right? This is as old school as it gets. Think of like the boardwalk pitchmen back in the day, and Billy Mays, right? And all those infomercial people who, that's where that came from, is demonstrating the product in action. I once made a video about the guy in New York City who made $1 million selling potato peelers on the street because he was such an amazing, extraordinary, demonstrative salesperson. And so we're again, when there's chaos and crisis, people go to the sure thing, right? And so they go back to copy, they go back to demonstration, they go back to the things that sell the product, making deeper connections with your buyers, your audience. All the things we specialize in are the things that companies need most right now. This is pretty amazing. It just goes to show that we've chosen the right industry. What we do will never die. Let's see. Of course, rising gig work opportunities, more small businesses using freelancers than in the past. Again, personally branding themselves to differentiate their brand from the rest. If that doesn't describe what we do and focus on a lot in Copy Chief, nothing does. Right there is your 60-second sales hook. I mean, that alone to bring to a business who's looking to differentiate their business and brand from the competition. It's exactly what the 60-second sales hook does. Something you guys are should all be versed in and experts in writing. Remote or online is the way to go. Face-to-face interactions obviously going to be out for a little while longer. So how do we replace that online? Again, you need copy, you need more impact with your messaging. You need scripts, video scripts, do it with video, like face-to-face digitally. Shifting to remote work, small businesses are now seeing their employees continue to perform even with everything else going on while working from home. So overall confidence in hiring a freelancer to do what you once believed could only be done in office is becoming more and more common. I talked yesterday about some of the Agora companies in having no choice now but to adjust their policy on only working with copywriters in-house, especially newer copywriters to the business. And this struggle I kind of had with them because they would consult me on how to get more copywriters, and I kept saying if you'd allow them to work virtually, it would be you'd revolutionize how you do this, and you'd be able to grow the team as big as you want. And they had their reasons for not wanting to do that. They've tried and failed in some instances working virtually with copywriters. Of course, the pandemic forced them to close the office and work virtually, and now they're seeing that it can be done. Serving at a deeper level, right? Deeply transformative offers that have big impact and are at a premium level of delivery and investment are trending big time now with our clients. Again, this is so direct response, right? Different levels of engagement, different levels of packages, things that we think and study every day, how funnels work, how buyer acceleration works. We're experts in this, things that they're just starting to figure out. It's like, okay, we need to do better with the customers we already have instead of, trying to now get new customers from a thinning pool. Focusing on online reputation management. This is a big one. Again, talk about needing copy, getting your messaging together. If you realize, what people see when they search your name or your company isn't what you wish they saw, you've got to replace that strategically, from a tech standpoint with SEO and things like that. And you're going to need copy to tell the story your way, right? What do they say about, having a brand story? It's either happening by design or by default. And a lot of these companies are looking up and realizing, oh my God, like our online presence is more important than ever. And our reputation exists by default and it ain't good. So we need to design our reputation, and we better hire a copywriter to help us do that. And this one, I love this last one, rethinking marketing spend. Right? Let's read this whole one. Most marketing professionals will rarely admit this, but some marketing spending is wasteful with questionable ROI. Hello? Hello? Really? You mean like, radio ads and TV ads and print ads that you just have been doing out of habit because you think that's how you advertise, instead of actually creating funnels that you can measure and hiring copywriters who are there to get you a measured result, and you'll share those numbers with your team of marketers and copywriters and say, how do we make this even better? That kind of concept. Wow, that's revolutionary. I love when publications like Forbes and even like Advertising Age do this all the time. Talk about, the new trend in measured ad spend. It's like the only way we do things in direct response. So this one cracks me up. But again, so more and more companies realizing, hey, maybe we shouldn't just put our name out there. Maybe we should actually track how people engage with our advertising and make sure that it actually produces an ROI. So hackathon sponsorship or other pretend innovations by osmosis. The pandemic has forced businesses to rethink their approach when it comes to marketing. If you can't quantitatively justify a marketing campaign, perhaps it's time to recalibrate or change focus. Yeah, I'd say that's probably true every single day of the life of your business. But if it took a pandemic for you to wake up and realize that, then that's fine. We're all having our own experience. But again, all of this points to us being amazingly primed to kick ass in 2021. What you need to do is make sure that you've got what people need to see when they go looking for a professional. And so that's where I want to show you that this trend is already happening. Find my slides here. And again, just to reiterate some of the things we focused on yesterday, 48% of the US workforce will be freelance by the end of 2020. Half of the workforce in the United States now doing what we do. That's good and bad. That's good because it means it's, for all the reasons we just pointed out, becoming the new norm. More of the new norm will continue to trend that way, but there's also going to be more competition. And so we have to be aware of that. Again, if you're not a member of Copy Chief and you don't know how we roll, the reason we're experts on this is because we are the only copywriting community where clients pay to put their job in front of our members, because they know if they're serious about hiring good copywriters and they respect the craft of copywriting, they want to hire from Copy Chief. And so when you see all these jobs boards in other places and all these Facebook groups and they're crappy jobs and the people offering them seem to have a lot of attitude, like they're doing you a favor by hiring anybody to do this, that's because those are free and people are just trying to tick a to-do off their list, find copywriter, get them as cheap as possible. Imagine the difference of mindset when you're going, yes, I'll pay $200 just to put this ad, this job in front of good copywriters. That's how much I respect the craft and the contractor that I'll eventually hire to do this. Night and day difference. So that means we get to vet these jobs. We understand what the people are looking for. It means we get to track these trends. And even with all that scrutiny, about every 48 hours, we're able to post a new job opportunity. So the big shifts, companies hiring on retainer, building copy teams, leaders hiring personal copy coaches, which again, we saw that with the branding, right, from that article, needing to make a deeper connection, needing to protect your reputation, a spike in copy consulting, people wanting to make sure that what they're writing is good from their content all the way to their copy. And of course, in virtual full-time gigs. So here's what I didn't get to show yesterday is just exactly what some of those ads look like. And again, if you're a member of Copy Chief, you have access to these jobs boards. None of these, by the way, are older than October. So this is, I didn't even have to go very far at all to get direct examples of how these ads are going up to show evidence of this shift. So just from Wednesday, ongoing direct response role with established e-commerce training company, right? Directly from that article, more online business. Angie's been working very hard and seeing a lot of applications for Jeff Walker's team. Again, building copy teams, something Jeff Walker's been doing for a while, something Angie ran for a long time. Jeff's team over there, all their copywriters came from Copy Chief. Connections, Chris Orzechowski was, Abby built that team. She hired Angie, she hired Chris Orzechowski, Candice Lazar. So again, we know how this works. We're so ahead of these trends. Look at this. Looking for a copy coach. Michael here ended up eventually hiring Melanie Warren to coach him in his own copy skills. He said, yeah, I want to work with copywriters. I also want to make sure I'm becoming a better copywriter so I know what I'm looking for. So he hired Melanie to be his personal coach to help him get there. Fantastic. You just wouldn't have seen that in the past. Financial publisher looking for a part-time junior copywriter. Again, looking to build teams, not do one-offs. Facebook ads, the money skills, always the most relevant stuff. Story mapping, again, and if you know about Mike Renard's story mapping, which those trainings are available to you in Copy Chief, it's all about making that personal connection, telling that story, making deeper connections. And here again, when we need some, this is just literally from 6 hours ago. Jason McGarva, someone to conduct testimonial and case study interviews over Zoom. And so again, making those deeper connections, showing the case studies, the testimonials, how are our customers, clients succeeding with our products, a very direct response marketing thing, but now leaking out into the bigger, wider world of marketing, because people are miraculously, get this, everybody, starting to think about ROI from their marketing. Isn't that crazy? Have you ever heard of such a thing? Oh my God. So what do we know for sure? There are now better jobs with better clients. Again, we saw in the blue, right? The pivots, the companies that were able to make this transition are the strongest companies. They did it. They survived the chaos, the madness. Over 100,000 businesses did not, and the ones that are left are strong and will thrive and have refocused their marketing efforts towards more direct response reality. Freelancers, of course, now are in high demand because of that, but competition will increase. So if you're not freelancing, you've been standing on the sidelines of it, now is the time. And the ways to do it, here's what you got to have. And here's what I want to give you today. Again, if you weren't on the training yesterday, this is what you need to know going into 2021. If you're planning to freelance, you've got to have your money skills together. You've got to understand your advantage as a copywriter. And again, if you're new to this is so important. You are not starting from scratch. You're combining relevant experience to enhance your existing writing talents and form a specialty. You've got to specialize. You cannot be a generalist standing in the back of the line with all the other generalists. Or why? Then the only way you can win the job if you're a generalist is on price, which means you're lowballing. So just go to Upwork and fight it out over price, with people who can afford to work much cheaper than you. And good luck. It's going to be very frustrating and, very daunting. And so if you instead find your relevant experience and match it with your emerging copy talents and become a specialist, changes everything. Then you just need to identify your ultimate ready to rock clients, those people we just looked at, those kinds of businesses who are maybe new to all this stuff or already savvy about it and wanting to double down on their efforts, and get in front of them, connect with them. There's ways to do this. Follow the pro code. Of course, you guys know this already. Show up when you said you'd be there, doing what you said you will have done. And then use the 50-20-25 method to growing your business. Again, something I'm really excited about going deeper into with a future training. But just for a quick recap, you want 50% of your time and energy to generate 100% of your base income, right? When you can do that, now you have this other time to really grow a business. So now you're having time to sharpen your skills, make people aware of your specialty, your expertise by networking. Over here, you've got Flex where you can do side gigs. This is the side hustle or personal time, personal passion projects, right? Or sleep, or take a road trip, or do things that make you more interested and engaged with life so that you're always the best writer you can be. So and then I shared some examples of all that. So if you weren't on the webinar yesterday and you want to see the total replay, it's probably up now or will be up by tomorrow at copychief.com, escape velocity. If you are interested in the program, here's how to get there and what it costs. If you want to coach with me and Rachel, Mazza, and the rest of the team over the next 10 weeks through these 5 modules, it's $24.90. We immediately sold another 6 or so of these after the webinar yesterday. So we're under 10 spots left here now for the coaching. And if you just want the course, it's $14.90. And again, it's copychief.com/escape velocity right there. All right. So there you go. Any questions about any of that? Any of you guys who are freelancing, or have you seen these trends? You want to talk more about it, go deeper into it? Again, the beauty of these chief chats for me is that we get to just chat, and it's called a chat for a reason. And we can go deeper into this stuff and talk a little bit more about it. Maybe I'll bring Angie on if you're up for it, Angie, since you're here. I know you're doing a bit of traveling, so you may not be. Okay, cool. Because again, you talk about someone who's been in the trenches of this really her entire career, first as part of an agency as a copywriter, and then as a freelancer, and then leading teams. This is what you do now, Angie. You not only led the team at Jeff Walker's. If people don't know Jeff Walker, something launch. What's the name of that?
product launch formula.
Product
Although
launch formula, of course. That's it.
rumors state that that may actually change at some point in the future.
Oh, get out. Really? No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a learning curve. It's interesting in doing all of the interviews that I've done over the past week to screen people for this role. It's been really interesting to see the sheer number of people who have the skills, but it's all messed up in here.
mm,
Like I've literally been and to toot my own horn. I'm a pretty generous person. Like everybody that has reached out to ask me questions, I've freely given them advice on what I think will um, make them a successful candidate. And some people have really taken me up on that and asked for a couple calls, and I'm happy to give that to them because it shows
wow.
me they're serious.
That's
And
very nice.
some people have not, and it's neither good nor bad. It used the resources that are available. But there have been several that have asked me for feedback, and like, I don't feel like I'm a strong candidate, and I'm like, but you are.
Hmm.
I can't believe that you almost talked yourself out of applying for this thing because you were imagining who else you were competing against and telling yourself. I'm gonna be real clear right now, especially since Kevin brought up the free job boards. I'm just go ahead and assume that 80% of the people that are applying to those jobs have no clue what the freak they're talking about at all. They're not even remotely qualified. They're probably firing off resumes to show that they filed something so they can get their unemployment. Again, it's not a judgment, it's kind of the reality of where we're at. But like, instead of going in assuming that you are one of the crappy candidates, go in assuming, hey, I have some skill, I've done some studying, I think I could make a serious go of this, and do your best. That's
Yeah.
all any of us can do. Do your best.
Yeah. And, it's kind of funny, Angie, and beautiful to see this evolution in you, because one of my favorite things about Angie Cooley, which is it's quite a long list, is that Angie understands how to tough it out against her own head trash sometimes. And it's I love this evolution because now you're filling the role that you once applied for, essentially, and ascended to the top of the heap in that structure. But you were having similar concerns and went through a similar process when Abby was filling this role. The difference was you said to Abby, what's everything I can do to have an advantage? And you went about doing those things. You had to submit a video, for instance, and you couldn't get you couldn't get Stella from jumping in the frame. And you said, screw it. That's part of my life. Stella's going to be in the video with me. And they loved that. Right. And so we do get, no matter what level you're at, you get these things in your head that go, I don't know, maybe I'm sure there's better. It's interesting, Angie. I just did a thing with Paris and name drop here, and Brian Kurtz and Dean Jackson. They're doing a new podcast about cognitive bias, right?
Interesting.
And one of the most common cognitive bias is, I forget the actual name of it. Somebody will know this. People thinking they're smarter about something than they are, right? Just having an unrealistic level of expertise about something. And everybody around them's going, are they serious? Do they really think they're good at this? So we see that a little of that in freelancing, but we see more of what you're talking about, which is probably there's a long list of cognitive bias, by the way. So I'm sure there's one that's about being insecure about what you're actually good at. And the better freelancers usually are on the insecure side, because I don't know, maybe we're good because we don't make assumptions and we work harder and we over prepare, right?
I think it's part that and part that we're comparing ourselves to our copy heroes. And like, that's such an advanced level of expertise that 90% of your clients are never going to need. It's like the most impact that you can make. I'm going to tell you here and now, the thing that surprised me the most, people thought that I am a verifiable copy genius, and I really don't think that I am, is when I was on stage at Jeff Walker's event teaching people about copy 101. I don't know what you do from this page. Can you put somewhere in your headline that this is who you help? I'm basic stuff that these people don't know nearly as well as we do. And I'm telling you, if you've been studying this for like 6 months and you're serious about learning copy, you know enough to
Yeah.
get out there and really help some people that I truthfully don't know as much as you, because this is not the world they live in or play in. So don't compare yourself up. I mean, you could aspire to be someone like at Kevin's level, aspire to be someone like me and run teams. Use this as inspiration, but trust the fact that you've been studying and you give a damn and you probably know enough to go out and help people. So just find the people you can help.
That's so great. Yeah. I always say, and I'm careful with this because I'm never about people pretending that they know a lot more than they do. But it's important to remember that to be an expert, you only need to know 10% more than the person you're teaching. And you're an expert. I love this analogy of if you're lost in a town and you're trying to get somewhere, the person who will stop and give you directions is your expert, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we become experts in things we wish we weren't experts in. Health issues that we've had to. I have a metal heart valve. If somebody tells me they have a murmur, I want to be an expert for them and say, hey, by the way, if your dentist tells you to medicate, don't blow it off. Because if you don't and you have a murmur, you could get a blood infection. And if it's misdiagnosed, you can end up needing open heart surgery and have a metal ticker the rest of your life.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like we all collect things. And so if you're insecure about being an expert, think about things that you are an expert on already and times you've given advice around that subject. Again, it could be something unfortunate like divorce. It could be something amazing like success, like leadership, like how to make more money, land a better job. But I promise you, if you're on this call, you're of a certain age, you're of a certain life experience, you've been an expert for someone else many times, and it's the same exact thing. You just got to get over the imposter syndrome of knowing there's people who have been doing this longer and better than us. There's also, as Angie's pointing out, a lot of people below us. So
Hmm.
own it.
And speaking of cognitive bias, I mean, like even just being part of a community like Copy Chief, you see somebody making a very smart observation, asking a very intelligent or thoughtful question, doing some copy edits, and you can develop this image of this person and make some assumptions that aren't necessarily true. Like for me, I was one of the early groups of RFL when we were still doing the agency, and I remember the first time that I saw everybody that was, a freelancer with the agency, I assumed that I was one of the people with the least experience and that I had a lot to learn. And when I looked at these people that were going out and landing huge contracts with big name clients and doing really killer work, getting some really awesome results, I was one of three people that had more than 5 years of experience. And I was telling myself that I couldn't compare to these people when the big difference between them and me, they would kill for my experience, first of all. And the big difference between them and me was they were putting themselves out there and not telling themselves the same I'm not good enough stories that I was telling myself.
Right. It's so true. Yeah. And it's a little very surprising and exciting when you have those moments of reality. You're like, whoa, okay. Oh, I do
Turns out
get
I
doing
might
this a
know
little
this.
bit. Yeah. I kind of know what I'm doing now. Yeah. So, awesome, Angie. So again, just to clarify, first of all, that's very generous of you. You're always this way to help people who are applying essentially to you for a job. And again, this is the great thing about our industry. Copywriting in particular is so unlike other industries where everybody's willing to help each other. I mean, the good people, there's crappy
Oh,
places.
there are dicks. I met some dicks
There's a
this
lot of
week.
dicks.
Don't be a dick. Be
But we have
somebody that's cool to work
a
with.
no dick policy in in Copy Chief. But I've found, as you have, Angie, throughout our entire careers, that even people that we have on such a pedestal, when you get in a room with them, couldn't be more willing to help because they all remember when they needed help and got a hand up.
Hmm. Exactly. We all had help getting where we are. So, like, no man is an island. Nobody's ever done it themselves. You don't get a trophy. You don't get extra brownie points for getting all the way to the top all on your own. And like, screw you
Yeah,
guys. I didn't need any help.
right.
Shortcut the
So true.
process.
100%. Yeah, cool. Awesome. So Anything else to add? Like you're on your world tour here. You're in Texas right now.
Hmm. Um, it's it's interesting how many. So this I'm speaking specifically to a job, and we know like jobs and freelance are related, but there are some distinct differences. And I actually wanted to talk about leverage a little bit because I
Mm,
think that's something that we don't talk about in the world of copy in general. So when you're applying for a role that's been open to the public and there are a bunch of other people that are applying for that same role, the person hiring has the leverage because they have their choice, their pick of the candidates. And when I said, that I encountered some not nice people earlier this week, it was mostly people yelling at me because we have a writing test. And
mm.
some of them were not pleasant whatsoever. And my advice to you is if you don't want to take a writing test, you don't have to take a writing test. Just say, "Hey, I withdraw from consideration. Have a nice day." You don't have to take there's no rule in the universe that says that you have to take a writing test. If you want it, you should. But that's up to you. It's a personal choice. Now, when you're going out and you're doing the prospecting, like Kevin and Rachel teach, like we teach in RFL and Escape Velocity, you actually have the leverage because you're showing up outside of the flood of applications with a skill that they might really, really need. And if you impress them with your skills and your qualifications and the quality of advice, the work that you do, well, they want you. And now you have the leverage. So that doesn't, I'm not saying employment is better or freelancing is better. It's up to you to explore that and figure out what works for you. But just kind of understand that little dynamic. Like if you're competing for others, well, you have to evaluate what feels good for you in terms of the work that you want to put in to getting that, to landing that role.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, there's also something about what that says about sort of who you are and how you roll through life too. Again, if your instinct is to be offended by having to do a writing test, then it's not a good gig for you. That filter is there for a reason, because if you are appalled by the idea of having to sort of audition for the gig, that means that you're of a mindset that is not going to make you a good team member.
Hmm.
That's part of why that's there. And so, like Angie said, follow that instinct and say, "Oh no, I didn't know this was part of it. This feels beneath me. Moving on. Cool. Take care." Um, but keep in mind, there's something about just wanting to do well in a challenge, right? And you don't have to accept the job if you offered it and it's not for you at the end of the day. But how much cooler is it to be the one to say, "I'm sorry, this isn't just what I hoped for," and moving on? Because guess what? That potential client is still going to remember you as somebody they wanted.
Hmm.
So if you follow the pro code and you have good soft skills and you communicate well and you kicked ass, that is time well spent, because you've just impressed all these people who you might see down the road. Or maybe they'll go, somebody go to Jeff Walker or somebody on the team, or you, Angie, and go, "I need a good copywriter." And you're like, "We just had somebody we wanted to hire. They didn't want the full-time thing. I'm going to recommend them. Their writing style fits what you're looking for." You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's all part of the networking.
Talk about
And
leverage in the right ways. And like, I
Mhm.
definitely remember all of the top candidates that made it to interview. So if they turned us down, it wouldn't, as long as they're not a jerk about it,
Right.
we're going to remember them fondly. And yes, since Jeff evangelizes copy a lot, we have a lot of people asking us for recommendations. And then by the same token, I remember those guys that are mean about it,
Yeah.
um, because we get asked for references all the time.
Yeah.
And guess who is not on my recommendation
Yeah.
list?
Isn't it? I hate to say this because we're always so positive, but every once in a while there's these little revenge moments in
Oh
your
yeah.
because I am not very, I don't like conflict. I don't like living in conflict, and so I don't get into it with people very often. But if somebody really wrongs me, obviously you never forget that, right?
Hmm.
And you get this little thing that you go, someday this is going to come back around," and then it does. And somebody asks you about that person, and you're able to go, "Sorry," and
Hmm. Well, that's a good point too. That's why I make it a point not to trash talk. And I won't, if I've had a bad
yeah,
experience with someone, I'm not going to go like light the bonfires and gather the pitchfork mob and skewer them.
right,
But I know that at some point somebody's probably going to ask me about that. And then because I didn't get mad publicly and make a big scene, they also trust my recommendation when I say, I didn't really have a great experience with that. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And it counts for more because of the avoiding of drama.
Exactly right. That's a great point, Angie. Because you're not a flamer and someone who's constantly fighting with people, people like really put a lot of weight to if you kind of have a warning against someone, they're like, oh God, like Kevin never talks bad about people. So I'm so glad I asked. I love what Alison just wrote. You have a dick list and a recommendation list, and nobody's on both.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point. And nobody ever on both those lists. You know what I mean? And the other reason I think you and I don't publicly out people or shame them, because we want to give people grace. Sometimes people are having a bad day, a bad year, a bad moment,
Or we're like, our personalities just didn't click and they never were going to. Like,
yeah. But you know if somebody wronged you, and that comes back around. So that's a really good point, Angie, about leverage. And I think of Melanie. Again, I mentioned Melanie Warren earlier. Something Melanie did this year, she took a full-time job. I say full-time because full-time in our world, the world of freelancing, means you can do the job. It's the 50% so she's still using her 50-25-25, but she has her money's taken care of with one client. And so it's funny how she ended up with the job, because this is such part of Melanie's personality. She could not resist the challenge of the application process. Remember her talking about it was it was deep and it was daunting, and she was sort of like the whole way on going, I can't believe the audacity of them asking me to do all this, but I also can't turn back now because I'm halfway through the process. She's like, I just for my own satisfaction need to finish this. And then of course they were like, you're our top candidate, and now suddenly she had this leverage of, okay, well, here's what I would need to become your part of your team. So,
and that brings up there was an interesting conversation in a copy group on Facebook the other day. We were talking about tests again, which, most of the copy community loves to rage against it. Again, if testing is not for you, it's not a thing, but auditioning is common in the creative fields. If you want a paid actor role, odds are that you've done a free audition at some point. If you want a speaking gig, things like that, samples are common. And somebody pointed out to me that, like, yeah, but an audition is kind of a free reel that's not usable in the end movie and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but writing, somebody can also steal off the internet and misrepresent as theirs. So kind of like I told you, if you're comparing yourself to other experts and going, I'm not good enough, remember in the bottom of the pile are the people that are flat out lying about their qualifications too. So like a test is usually a test that's done well is not going to be used publicly. It's just to gauge how you do, how you think, get a sense for your and a little bit to verify that you are who you say you are.
Yeah, look, and there's different kinds of tests and things. And again, it's one of those things where if you're skeptical about how the company you're applying to is going to use your writing test, that's a red flag for you.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut, man. It's just logical that Jeff Walker is not going to steal your test copy and put it in his marketing. I mean, it's just, you shouldn't be applying if you suspect that might happen.
Yep.
So Angie, thank you. This was great. Spontaneous, great lessons. I want to also say, I want to put some fire under this thing. I hope you won't get mad if I say this, that Angie is working on a podcast and it's a secret project, and she's doing it right because she's taking her time and like building it first, but it's going to be so amazing. And I've been able to hear a few of the tests, talk about your test episodes, and they're fantastic. And so I just want to out this publicly, Angie, and say that I'm excited for this, and everybody listening right now is all like on the wait list for this podcast. So we're going to keep it front burner priority and make it real.
That's my project over the holidays, is listening back to all of the produced episodes now and kind of finding bits for the trailer. So I know that there are a couple of F-bomb moments in there that just got really silly that are probably going to make it in there, but.
Yeah, I admire you kids that I coach who established your language out of the gate. because I, for whatever reason, decided not to use so much language. And now I feel like whenever I do, it's like, oh, Kev, what's the, I can do it obviously, but you and Chris Orzakowski just swearing your heads off and it fits and it works. I'm like, that's fun.
Mm-hmm. I try not to be excessive
Swear.
about it because I know that, and I respect people that don't swear as much as me too. But sometimes it's just the right word, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I was reading Chris's email yesterday, and just he puts them in there so perfectly because a swear word is supposed to level up the emotion. That's what it's a power word. It's what it's there for, right? And so it's only when used gratuitously that it becomes a distraction.
Yeah.
So good on you for swearing with purpose. Well, the show is called Permission to Kick Ass. So right there, we've established what's safe for the audience. So
It is. And if you want to find out, my personal plug, permissiontokickass.com. Sign
yes,
up for the list. I will
permission.
tell you.
Get on Angie's list. Permission to. This is kind of her. This, if you like what you're hearing from you guys know she's a marketing expert and a copywriting expert. This is the side of Angie that I've condoned her exploring more, where she gives you real life advice in a lot of great wisdom from the trenches. Angie has not had an easy go of it. The wisdom she has is hard won, and it's deep and it's vast, and she shares it with grace and integrity always. So
It's always astonished me that people think that I'm some like fearless badass that has always known everything. It's partly because I think you've heard all of the anxiety behind the screen, the scenes that kept like, trust me, I understand the anxiety and the head trash on a deep personal level, and that's why I don't pull any punches.
yeah, it's beautiful. All right, well, it's a perfect time to end as my dog freaks out because the lawn guys are here. And so this has been great, everybody. I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of this. And we will see you on the next one. Have a great weekend, Angie. Appreciate you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. See ya.